The smell of garlic and rosemary filled our modest colonial kitchen as I put the finishing touches on what should have been the perfect Valentine's dinner. 3 hours I'd spent preparing Jessica's favorite, herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables and that expensive wine she loved but never bought herself. The table was set with our wedding china, candles flickering, creating the romantic atmosphere I thought she wanted. I'm Mike Patterson, 42 years old, and I've been installing home security systems for 15 years in this weathered New England mill town. My hands are calloused from honest work, my back aches from crawling through attics, but I take pride in what I do. I protect people's homes, their families, their peace of mind. Ironic, considering I couldn't protect my own. The front door slammed at 7:30, 30 minutes late. Jessica walked in wearing her power suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored, the one that cost more than I made in a week. Behind her came Ethan Morrison, her business associate, all smiles and cologne, followed by her boss, Margaret Caraway. "Oh," Jessica said, surveying the romantic dinner I'd prepared. "You're still doing this cooking thing." I stood there holding a wine glass, feeling like an idiot in my clean button-down shirt. "It's Valentine's Day, Jess. I thought we could have a nice dinner, just the two of us." Ethan laughed, a sound like fingernails on chalkboard. "Mike, buddy, you don't get it. Real men don't waste time playing house. They're out there making things happen, closing deals, building empires." "Real men don't waste time cooking," Jessica added, her voice cold as February wind. "They leave that to the professionals." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Jessica's right, Mike. She's got bigger things to focus on than domestic fantasies." I put down the wine glass and smiled, the kind of smile that should have warned them, the kind I used to wear in the boxing ring before I knocked someone flat. "Well," I said, "I guess I'll just have to find a new hobby." They left for their business dinner, Jessica grabbing her purse without even looking at the meal I'd prepared. The candles burned down to nothing while I sat alone, eating lamb that tasted like sawdust and planning exactly how I was going to destroy their perfect little world. See, here's what they didn't know about Mike Patterson. I might install security systems for a living, but I also know exactly how to bypass them. I protect people's secrets, which means I know how to expose them. And I've got a mean right hook that 20 years of amateur boxing taught me to throw with surgical precision. The next morning, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Jessica left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. 3 minutes was all I needed to install a tracking app I'd learned about from a cheating spouse case last year. Her text messages painted a picture that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Mike's working late again. Perfect timing." That was to Ethan, sent yesterday at 2 p.m. His response, "Booked our usual room. Bring that black thing I like." Our usual room. How long had this been going on? I scrolled back through weeks of messages. The affair had been running for 4 months. 4 months of lies, of Jessica coming home late with excuses about client meetings and court preparations. 4 months of me being the devoted husband while she was screwing her business partner in cheap motel rooms. But it got worse. Much worse. There were messages to her best friend Monica, detailing not just the affair, but her complete contempt for me. "Mike's so pathetic with his little security business. Ethan makes more in a month than Mike does all year. I deserve better than a blue-collar nobody." Monica's responses were poison. "You absolutely deserve better, honey. Ethan's successful, sophisticated, everything Mike isn't. Maybe it's time to make some changes. Changes. Like divorce. Like taking half of everything I'd worked for and running off with her lawyer salary and her real estate mogul boyfriend." That evening, I followed Jessica's phone signal to the Riverside Motel, a rundown place on the edge of town, where rooms rent by the hour and nobody asks questions. Her silver Lexus was parked next to Ethan's black BMW. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, watching their silhouettes in the window of room 12. Part of me wanted to kick down the door and beat Ethan's pretty face into hamburger. The smarter part, the part that had learned patience from years of setting up complex security systems, told me to wait. Instead, I walked over to his BMW and keyed cheater along the driver's side in letters 6 inches tall. Then I knelt down and put my pocket knife through his front tire, the steel hissing as air rushed out. I was getting back in my truck when I noticed Mrs. Ramsey from down the street sitting in her car across the parking lot, cell phone in hand. She'd been taking pictures. The next day, Jessica stormed into Red's boxing gym while I was working the heavy bag. Red Kowalski had been training fighters for 30 years, and his converted armory gym was my refuge when life got complicated. The old building still smelled like gun oil and leather, mixed now with sweat and liniment. Jessica threw a printed photo on the exercise mat. It showed me, clear as day, standing next to Ethan's vandalized BMW. "You want to play games, Mike?" she hissed. "I'm a lawyer. I'll bury you so deep you'll need a map to find daylight." I stopped hitting the bag and turned to face her. She was dressed for court, all professional authority and barely contained rage. "Games," I said. "I thought we were talking about vandalism. Though I suppose adultery's more your specialty." Her face went white. "You don't know what you're talking about." Room 12 at the Riverside Motel. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 months. Should I go on? Red stepped between us, his scarred hands raised peacefully. "Maybe you two should take this somewhere private." "No," Jessica said, her voice shaking with fury. "He wants to threaten me? In public? Fine. Mike, you touch Ethan's property again, you come near him again, and I'll have you arrested for stalking and harassment. I'll take the house, the business, everything. You'll be lucky if I let you see the girls on weekends." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the concrete floor like gunshots. Red shook his head. "Mike, brother, you're playing with fire." "Fire's what I do best, Red. I install systems that detect it, contain it, control it." I went back to hitting the bag, each punch landing with the sound of leather on meat. Time to see how well Jessica's system handles a 5-alarm blaze. The thing about small towns is that everyone knows everyone else's business, and secrets spread faster than gossip at a church social. I'd lived in Millbrook my entire life, installed security systems in half the houses, and coached Little League for both my daughters. People trusted me, liked me, saw me as the reliable guy who showed up when he said he would and did the job right. Jessica, for all her legal success, was still seen as an outsider. She'd grown up in Boston, went to law school there, and only moved to Millbrook when she married me 15 years ago. She made good money and commanded respect in the courtroom, but she'd never quite fit into the social fabric of the town. That was about to become her biggest problem. I started with Dave Chen, who managed the electronics store where I bought most of my equipment. Dave and I had been friends since high school, and he knew everybody who was anybody in Millbrook's small business community. "I need a favor," I told him over coffee at Rosie's Diner. "I want to upgrade my home security system. Full surveillance, motion detectors, the works, but I need it done quietly." Dave raised an eyebrow. "Trouble at home?" "You could say that. Jessica's been working late a lot lately. I want to make sure the house is secure when she's not there." It wasn't technically a lie. I did want to secure the house. I just didn't mention I was securing it against Jessica herself. Dave helped me install cameras in every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms. Tiny devices, nearly invisible, that would record everything happening in our home. If Jessica wanted to play lawyer games, she'd need evidence. I was about to make sure all the evidence pointed in my direction. Next, I visited Jules Martinez at the Anchor Bar, the dive where half the town's blue-collar workers unwound after their shifts. Jules was an ex-cop who'd retired early and bought the bar with his pension. He knew every secret, every affair, every dirty deal that went down in Millbrook. "Heard your wife's been spending time with that real estate hotshot," Jules said, without preamble, polishing a glass with practiced efficiency. "Word travels fast. Faster when the real estate hotshot's got a reputation for chasing married women. Ethan Morrison's been through 3 affairs I know about, all with clients' wives. Man's got a type, successful women who think they deserve better than what they got." This was news to me. 3 affairs? At least. His ex-wife divorced him over it, took him for half his business. Of course, he's built it back up since then. Guy's got talent for making money, I'll give him that. Jules leaned across the bar, lowering his voice. Mike, you want some advice? Don't try to fight this thing head on. Guys like Morrison, women like your wife, they think they're smarter than working folks like us. But they got blind spots. Use 'em. I bought Jules a drink and listened to him talk about Ethan's business practices, his clients, his weaknesses, information I filed away for later use. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source, my 14-year-old daughter, Emily. I found her in her room that evening, laptop open, camera positioned for what looked like a video recording. What are you working on, sweetheart? She looked guilty, quickly minimizing her browser window. Just homework, Dad. But I'd seen enough. She'd been recording TikTok videos, and the title of the last one was visible for just a second. When your dad's a total loser and your mom's living her best life. My own daughter was broadcasting our family's dysfunction to the internet. That night, after Jessica came home from another client meeting that lasted until midnight, I lay in bed planning my next move. She slept beside me, probably dreaming about her successful boyfriend and her sophisticated new life, completely unaware that her husband was about to become her worst nightmare. The opportunity came 3 days later at Emily's school play. The whole town turned out for these events. Parents, grandparents, teachers, local business owners. Jessica sat with Margaret Caraway and several other lawyers from her firm, playing the part of the successful professional woman supporting her daughter's artistic endeavors. Ethan showed up halfway through the first act, sliding into the seat next to Jessica with the kind of casual intimacy that made my jaw clench. He put his hand on her knee, whispered something in her ear that made her smile. During intermission, I cornered him by the refreshment table. Enjoying the show, Ethan? He turned, flashing that perfect smile that probably cost $10,000 in dental work. Mike! Great to see you, buddy. Emily's really talented. She is. Takes after her mother that way. Very good at performing. His smile faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? Just that some people are natural actors. They can make you believe anything, even when they're lying right to your face. I think you've got the wrong idea about something, Mike. I stepped closer, close enough that only he could hear me. Room 12 at the Riverside Motel. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Black lingerie. Want me to keep going? His face went pale, then flushed red. You're out of line. Am I? Because from where I stand, you're the one who's out of line. Way out of line. Look, Mike, maybe we should talk about this like adults. Adults don't sleep with other men's wives, Ethan. Adults don't sneak around cheap motels like teenagers. He glanced around nervously, making sure no one was listening. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you want? I smiled, the same smile I'd given Jessica on Valentine's Day. I want you to understand something very clearly. This is my town, these are my people, and that's my wife you're screwing around with. You think you're sophisticated? Think you're better than us small-town folks? But you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Ethan tried to look tough, puffing out his chest. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. The lights dimmed for the second act, and I walked away, leaving him standing by the punch bowl looking like he'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't done, not even close. After the play, I followed Jessica and Ethan to the parking lot. They thought they were being discreet, standing by her car, having what looked like an intense conversation. I positioned myself behind a van where I could hear every word. He knows, Ethan was saying. He knows everything. Mike's not stupid, Jessica replied, but he's not going to do anything. He's too afraid of losing the girls, losing the house. He'll bluster and threaten, but in the end, he'll accept it. You sure about that? Because the guy I just talked to didn't sound like he was planning to accept anything. Jessica laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Mike's a security installer, Ethan. He fixes alarm systems and changes locks. He's not some action hero. The worst he'll do is key your car again. Maybe we should cool things off for a while. Absolutely not. I'm not letting my husband dictate my life. If anything, this proves it's time to accelerate our timeline. Timeline? For the divorce. I was thinking we'd wait until summer, but maybe it's better to get it over with now. Strike first, before he has time to hide assets or turn the girls against me. I'd heard enough. They were planning to destroy my life, take my children, and walk away laughing. Jessica thought she knew me, thought she could predict my reactions based on 15 years of marriage to a man she clearly didn't understand at all. She was about to learn that Mike Patterson, the reliable security installer, had some very unreliable friends. And when you threaten a man's children, you'd better be prepared for war. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. I took control of our finances. Every account, every credit card, every automatic payment, I studied them like a general studying a battlefield map. Jessica made good money as a lawyer, but she'd always left the household finances to me. "You're better with numbers," she'd said, which was true. What she didn't realize was that being better with numbers also meant I knew exactly how to make those numbers disappear. I started small. Canceled her premium credit card, the one she used for expensive lunches and shopping trips. When she called the bank, confused, they told her the account holder, me, had requested the cancellation due to suspected fraudulent activity. Next, I moved half our savings into an account she didn't know about, one I'd opened years ago for emergency funds. Perfectly legal, it was community property, and I was just moving it from one account to another. Then I got creative. Jessica's law firm used an expensive downtown parking garage. I called them, pretending to be concerned about my wife's safety, and asked them to notify me whenever her car was there outside normal business hours. She's been working so late lately, I just want to make sure she's okay. The parking attendant, a guy named Tommy who knew me from the gym, was happy to help. Within a week, I had a detailed log of exactly when Jessica was actually at work versus when she claimed to be at work. The discrepancies were damning, but the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Monica Fletcher, Jessica's best friend. Monica ran a successful real estate business, drove a Mercedes, and lived in the kind of house that appeared in magazines. She'd been Jessica's maid of honor at our wedding and had spent 15 years subtly undermining our marriage with comments about how Jessica deserved better and how I was holding her back. What I discovered, through careful observation and a few strategic conversations, was that Monica had her own agenda. I was installing a security system for the Hendersons, who lived next door to Monica, when I overheard her on the phone in her backyard. "Jessica's finally ready to leave him," she was saying. "Once the divorce goes through, she'll need a place to stay, somewhere sophisticated. I'm thinking the penthouse apartment in my downtown building." The voice on the other end was too quiet to hear, but Monica's responses painted a clear picture. "Of course Ethan will be part of the package. Jessica thinks she's in love with him, and that's perfect for our purposes. Once she's dependent on both of us, me for housing and business connections, him for emotional support, she'll be exactly where we want her." A pause, then Monica laughed. "Mike Patterson? He'll be lucky to afford a studio apartment when I'm done with him. Jessica's going to take him for everything he's worth." Another pause. "The girls? They'll adjust. Children are resilient, and they'll be better off with successful role models instead of their loser father." I nearly dropped my drill. Monica wasn't just encouraging Jessica's affair, she was orchestrating it. She wanted Jessica dependent on her, wanted to control her friend's life completely, and she was willing to destroy my family to make it happen. That evening, I made a decision that would have horrified the old Mike Patterson. I was going to become the villain in their story. If they wanted to play games with my life, my children's lives, then I'd show them what a real game looked like. I started with Ethan's business reputation. Real estate agents live and die by their reputations, and Ethan had built his on being trustworthy, professional, and discreet. I began systematically destroying that reputation through anonymous online reviews and carefully planted rumors. Ethan Morrison promised us our dream house, then tried to steal our deposit when the deal fell through. Unprofessional and dishonest. Posted to every real estate review site I could find. Be careful with Morrison Real Estate. I heard from a friend that Ethan has inappropriate relationships with married female clients. Very unprofessional. Shared in local Facebook groups and neighborhood forums. Ethan Morrison showed up to our house showing drunk and made inappropriate comments about my wife. Would not recommend. Posted on Google Reviews and Yelp. Within 2 weeks, Ethan's online rating had dropped from 4.8 stars to 2.1 stars. His phone stopped ringing. Clients started canceling appointments. But I was just getting started. I used my security system expertise to gain access to Ethan's office after hours. Not breaking and entering. I had a legitimate reason to be there. He'd hired me 6 months ago to upgrade his security system, and I still had the master codes. I didn't steal anything or break anything obvious. Instead, I opened a can of shrimp in his air conditioning vents. By the next day, his office smelled like a fish market in August. He had to close for a week while professional cleaners tried to find and eliminate the source of the odor. While his office was closed, I spray-painted "Home Wrecker" on his garage door in bright red letters. When he called the police, I was 40 miles away installing a security system for a client with witnesses and receipts to prove it. Jessica tried to confront me about the harassment of her business associate, but I just smiled and asked what she was talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Mike. The reviews, the vandalism, the harassment. Harassment? I haven't harassed anyone. Though I have to say, if someone's getting bad reviews, maybe they should examine their business practices. This isn't a game. You're absolutely right, it's not a game. Games have rules. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger, which, in a way, she was. The old Mike Patterson, the one who cooked romantic dinners and tried to make everyone happy, was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. The confrontation I'd been building toward came on a Friday night at the Anchor Bar. Jessica, Ethan, and Monica were there celebrating some business deal, drinking expensive wine and acting like they owned the world. I walked in at 9 o'clock, ordered a beer from Jules, and sat at the bar where I could watch them in the mirror. They noticed me immediately. Ethan looked nervous, Monica looked annoyed, and Jessica looked furious. After 20 minutes of whispered conversation, Jessica walked over to me. "What are you doing here, Mike?" "Having a beer. Last I checked, it was still a free country." "You're following us." "Following you?" "Jessica, you're in a public bar in the town where I've lived my entire life. If anyone's out of place here, it's not me." Ethan appeared beside her, trying to look tough. "Mike, this is getting ridiculous. Whatever problem you have with me, let's settle it like men." I turned on my bar stool to face him. "Like men? Ethan, real men don't sleep with other men's wives. Real men don't sneak around cheap motels. Real men don't destroy families for their own entertainment." The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was listening now. "You want to settle this like men?" I stood up, and Ethan took a step back. "Fine. Let's settle it." I reached for the pitcher of beer on the bar and accidentally tripped, dumping the entire thing down the front of Ethan's expensive suit. "Oops," I said. "How clumsy of me." Ethan sputtered, soaked in beer, looking like a drowned rat in designer clothing. The entire bar erupted in laughter. "You did that on purpose." "Prove it," I said, then turned to address the room. "Hey everyone, I'd like you to meet my wife's boyfriend, Ethan Morrison. He's a real estate agent, in case anyone's looking for someone to screw them over. He's got lots of experience in that area." Jessica grabbed my arm. "Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself?" "Jessica, I'm not the one cheating on my spouse in cheap motels. I'm not the one lying to my children. I'm not the one planning to destroy my family for a quick thrill." Monica finally joined the party, her face flushed with anger. "Mike, you're being pathetic. Jessica deserves better than this. Monica, I said, turning to face her, how nice of you to join us. Tell me, how long have you been planning this little soap opera? How long have you been manipulating my wife into destroying our marriage? Her face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. The penthouse apartment you've got picked out for Jessica. The business partnership you're planning. The way you've been poisoning her against me for years, waiting for your chance to control her life completely. The bar was dead silent now. Even Jules had stopped pretending to clean glasses. You're insane, Monica whispered. Am I? Then why don't you tell everyone here about your phone conversation last Tuesday? The one where you talked about taking me for everything I'm worth? The one where you called my daughters resilient and said they'd be better off without their loser father. Monica looked like she'd been slapped. Ethan looked confused. Jessica looked horrified. That's right, I continued, addressing the entire room. My wife's best friend has been orchestrating this whole thing. The affair, the divorce plans, everything. She wants to control Jessica's life, and she's willing to destroy mine to do it. I finished my beer and set the glass on the bar. Jules, put their drinks on my tab. It's the least I can do for the entertainment they've provided. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Jessica? You might want to check your credit cards. I canceled them this morning. Suspected fraudulent activity, you understand. I left them standing there, soaked, humiliated, and exposed, while the entire bar buzzed with the biggest scandal Millbrook had seen in years. But I still wasn't done. The real fireworks were yet to come. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. I'd spent 15 years learning Jessica's habits, her weaknesses, her pressure points. Now, I used every bit of that knowledge against her. I started with her professional reputation. Jessica prided herself on being the most competent lawyer in town, the one who never made mistakes, never missed deadlines, never let her personal life interfere with her work. Using the security cameras I'd installed in our house, I documented every time she came home drunk from her meetings with Ethan and Monica, every time she slept until noon on weekends, every time she ignored the girls to take phone calls from her conspirators. Then I began a careful campaign of disruption. I changed our home Wi-Fi password, cutting off her ability to work from home. When she asked for the new password, I told her I'd give it to her when she started acting like a wife and mother instead of a teenager. I canceled our subscription to the legal research database she used for her cases, claiming we needed to cut expenses since her credit cards were maxed out. I started picking up the girls from school early, taking them to the gym or out for ice cream, making sure they weren't home when Jessica wanted to spend time with them. Not to hurt the girls, they loved the extra attention, but to show Jessica what she was losing. Most importantly, I used my connections throughout the town to make life difficult for all 3 of my enemies. Ethan's business was already struggling from the bad reviews and the smell incident. I made it worse by having friends mention to their friends that they'd heard Ethan was unreliable, that he'd been drinking on the job, that he was going through some kind of breakdown. Monica's real estate business depended on her reputation as a sophisticated professional. I began spreading rumors that she was having financial troubles, that she was getting desperate for sales, that she'd been making questionable deals to stay afloat. And for Jessica, I used the most powerful weapon I had, the truth. I printed out screenshots of her text messages with Ethan, the ones where she called me pathetic and said she deserved better. I left copies in places where her colleagues would find them: the courthouse copy machine, the law library, the parking garage. I sent anonymous emails to her boss, Margaret Caraway, with detailed logs of when Jessica was actually at work versus when she claimed to be working late. The discrepancies made it clear she'd been billing clients for hours she'd spent in motel rooms. But my masterpiece was still to come. I spent a week planning the perfect trap, a scenario that would expose all 3 of them completely and give me everything I needed to destroy them permanently. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. I sent each of them a different message, using untraceable email accounts and careful wording that wouldn't technically be fraud. To Jessica, Margaret Caraway wants to meet with you and Ethan this Saturday at 2 p.m. to discuss a potential partnership opportunity. Meet at the old lakeside cabin on Route 9 for privacy. This could be the break you've been waiting for. To Ethan, a potential client wants to meet with you and Jessica about a major property development deal. Saturday, 2 p.m. at the lakeside cabin on Route 9. Could be worth millions. Jessica will explain the details. To Monica, Jessica needs your help with a crisis. Meet her at the lakeside cabin on Route 9, Saturday, 2 p.m. She's in trouble and you're the only one she trusts. The lakeside cabin was a rental property I'd used for family vacations when the girls were younger. Isolated, private, and equipped with the security cameras I'd installed years ago to protect against vandalism. Saturday afternoon, I positioned myself in the woods nearby with a clear view of the cabin. All three of them arrived within minutes of each other, each expecting something different, each walking into the trap I'd spent weeks preparing. Through the cameras, I watched the confusion as they realized they'd been set up. I watched Monica try to take control of the situation, Jessica demand answers, and Ethan look around nervously like he expected me to jump out of the bushes. Then I activated the speakers I'd connected to the security system and began the final act of my revenge. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," my voice echoed through the cabin. "Welcome to the Mike Patterson Show. Today's episode is called The Truth About Liars." Jessica spun around, looking for cameras. "Mike! What the hell is this?" "This, my dear wife, is your reckoning. You see, I've been watching you, all of you, for weeks. And I've learned some very interesting things. I activated the screens I'd installed, displaying text messages, photos, recorded phone conversations, everything I'd gathered about their conspiracy. Monica, let's start with you. Tell Jessica about your real plan. Tell her about how you want to control her life, how you see her as a puppet you can manipulate for your own benefit. Monica's face went white. "Jessica, don't listen to him. He's lost his mind." "Have I?" "Then explain this." I played the recording of her phone conversation, the one where she talked about making Jessica dependent on her, about taking me for everything I was worth. Jessica stared at her best friend in horror. "Monica, is this true? I was just trying to help you." "Help me? Or help yourself to my life?" The argument that followed was everything I'd hoped for. Monica confessing to years of manipulation. Jessica realizing she'd been used. Ethan trying to distance himself from both of them as the situation collapsed. But I wasn't finished. "Now for the grand finale," I announced. "You see, everything you've said and done in the last hour has been broadcast live to a very select audience. Margaret Caraway, Jessica's boss, the partners at Morrison Real Estate, the Millbrook Chamber of Commerce, your clients, your colleagues, your friends." The silence that followed was deafening. "That's right," I continued. "Everyone who matters in your professional lives has just watched you confess to adultery, manipulation, and conspiracy. They've heard you mock your clients, betray your friends, and destroy a family for your own entertainment." Jessica was crying now. "Mike, please. Think about the girls. I am thinking about the girls. I'm thinking about how much better off they'll be when they see what their mother really is. When they understand that some people will sacrifice everything, their integrity, their family, their children's happiness, for money and status." I remotely locked the cabin doors. "You're going to stay in there and think about what you've done. All three of you. Think about the lives you've destroyed, the trust you've broken, the children you've hurt. And when you're ready to face the consequences of your actions, you can walk home. It's only 5 miles. I left them there, trapped in their own guilt and shame while I drove back to town to watch their world burn. By evening, the entire town knew everything. The live stream had been shared hundreds of times. Jessica's law firm had already called an emergency meeting. Ethan's real estate license was under review. Monica's clients were demanding explanations, but the sweetest revenge was yet to come. The annual Valentine's Day celebration in Millbrook was always held in the town hall, a grand old building with marble floors and crystal chandeliers that had hosted everything from wedding receptions to political rallies. This year, it would host the final act of my revenge. Jessica had spent the week since the cabin incident trying to salvage her career and her reputation. She'd been suspended from her law firm pending an investigation into her billing practices. Several of her clients had requested new attorneys. The partners were considering whether her behavior constituted grounds for termination. Ethan's real estate business had collapsed completely. The state licensing board had opened an investigation based on the ethics complaints that had flooded in after the live stream. His remaining clients had fled, and he was facing potential lawsuits from previous deals that were now being scrutinized. Monica had lost 3 major clients and was desperately trying to convince people that she'd been taken out of context, that the recordings had been edited, that I was conducting a vendetta against successful women. But they all showed up to the Valentine's Day celebration, probably hoping that appearing in public together would help normalize their situation, make people think the whole thing had been blown out of proportion. They had no idea what I had planned. I arrived at 7 o'clock wearing my best suit, the one I'd worn to our wedding 15 years ago. It still fit perfectly, and I'd had it cleaned and pressed for the occasion. If I was going to be the villain in their story, I was going to look the part. The town hall was packed with couples, families, and local business owners. A jazz band played in the corner while people mingled over wine and hors d'oeuvres. Jessica, Ethan, and Monica stood near the back, trying to blend in but clearly uncomfortable with the stares and whispers that followed them everywhere. At 8 o'clock, Mayor Richardson took the microphone to welcome everyone and thank the sponsors. When he finished, I walked up to the stage. "Excuse me, Mayor Richardson, but I'd like to say a few words if I may." He looked surprised but handed me the microphone. The room fell silent as 300 people turned to look at me. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Mike Patterson. I've lived in Millbrook my entire life, installed security systems in half your homes, and coached many of your children in Little League." Murmurs of recognition rippled through the crowd. "I'm here tonight to talk about Valentine's Day, about love, and about what happens when people you trust decide to destroy everything you've built together." Jessica started moving toward the stage, but several people blocked her path, eager to hear what I had to say. You see, last Valentine's Day, I prepared a romantic dinner for my wife Jessica. Spent 3 hours cooking her favorite meal, set the table with our wedding china, bought expensive wine. I wanted to show her how much I loved her, how much our marriage meant to me. I paused, letting the silence build. She walked in with her boyfriend and told me that real men don't waste time cooking, that real men don't play house, that I was pathetic for trying to be romantic. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. What I didn't know then was that she'd been having an affair for 4 months. What I didn't know was that her best friend had been encouraging the affair, planning to use it to control Jessica's life. What I didn't know was that they were all planning to take my children, my home, everything I'd worked for, and leave me with nothing but the ashes of my own stupidity. I could see Jessica pushing through the crowd, her face red with anger and embarrassment. But here's what they didn't know about me. I might be a blue-collar guy who installs alarm systems for a living, but I'm very good at what I do. I protect people's homes, their families, their security. And when someone threatens my family, I take it very personally. Jessica reached the stage. "Mike, stop this right now." I turned to face her, speaking into the microphone so everyone could hear. "Stop what, Jessica? Stop telling the truth? Stop exposing your lies. Stop protecting our daughters from your selfishness. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" "Because from where I stand, you're the one who should be embarrassed. You're the one who cheated on her husband. You're the one who planned to abandon her children. You're the one who got played by her manipulative best friend." I turned back to the crowd. "You see, folks, my wife thought she was smarter than me. thought she could lie and cheat and steal, and I'd just accept it because I'm a simple working man who doesn't understand sophisticated people like her. The crowd was completely engaged now, some nodding in agreement, others looking shocked at the public confrontation. But I learned something important over the past few weeks. Sometimes the best security system isn't about keeping bad people out. Sometimes it's about exposing the bad people who are already inside. Ethan had joined Jessica at the edge of the stage, both of them looking desperate to escape. "Ethan Morrison," I called out, "come on up here, don't be shy. Tell everyone about your business practices. Tell them about the married women you target. Tell them about the cheap motels and the lies and the families you destroy for entertainment." Ethan shook his head, backing away. But the crowd was watching him now, judging him, and he had nowhere to hide. "And Monica Fletcher," I continued, "the puppet master herself. Tell everyone about your plan to control Jessica's life. Tell them about how you manipulated a 15-year marriage for your own benefit. Tell them about how you called my daughters resilient and said they'd be better off without their father." Monica tried to speak, but her voice was drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd. People were angry now, understanding the full scope of what these three had done. I raised the microphone again. You know what the funny thing is? They thought they were so clever, so sophisticated. They thought they could outsmart a simple security installer. But they made one crucial mistake. The room was dead silent. They forgot that in a small town like Millbrook, reputation is everything. Trust is everything. And once you lose those things, you lose everything. I set the microphone on its stand and walked to the edge of the stage, looking down at Jessica, Ethan, and Monica. You wanted to play games with my life? You wanted to destroy my family? You wanted to leave me with nothing but ashes? I smiled, the same smile I'd given them that first Valentine's Day. Congratulations, you succeeded. But here's the thing about ashes. They make excellent fertilizer for new growth. I jumped down from the stage and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted to let me through, many of them patting me on the back or whispering words of support. At the door, I turned back one last time. "Oh, and Jessica?" "The house is being sold. The papers are already filed. You'll get your half of the proceeds, minus the costs of the security system upgrades and the legal fees. Should be enough for a nice apartment somewhere. Maybe Monica can help you find one." I walked out into the February night, leaving behind the woman I'd loved for 15 years, the life I'd built, and the man I used to be. Behind me, the town hall erupted in conversation as 300 people discussed the most dramatic Valentine's Day in Millbrook's history. Jessica, Ethan, and Monica were left standing in the ruins of their reputations, their careers, and their carefully laid plans. They'd gotten exactly what they deserved, nothing but the ashes of their own making. I drove home to pack my things and start over, knowing that sometimes the only way to win is to burn everything down and build something better from the ashes. The old Mike Patterson, the one who tried to make everyone happy and cooked romantic dinners for ungrateful wives, was gone forever. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who threatened the people he loved. My daughters would understand someday. They'd see that their father had fought for them, had refused to let them grow up thinking it was acceptable to lie, cheat, and betray the people who loved you. And Jessica, Ethan, and Monica would spend the rest of their lives in Millbrook, because none of them could afford to leave now, knowing that everyone they met had heard the truth about who they really were. It was the perfect Valentine's gift, the gift of consequences.